Kia ora and welcome to Riftbound. This series is aimed at teaching you how to play the game and hopefully become more confident, ready for your first Nexus night. Today, we're going to play something very similar to what we saw last time, where we played a game of Aurora versus Diana. We're going to be playing, if I move over, to a game of Volibear, who is a very mighty based legend. He loves legends that have five or more might. And we're going to be playing a game against Darius, who is a very reactionary, uh, long-term strategy deck that can often utilize a large number of potentials in a single turn to disrupt the possibility of counterplay from his opponent. If that sounds very complex and a bit convoluted in some ways, that is completely understandable. All you need to know at this stage is, as I just tidy up the beginning phase, we will see that our two battlefields are going to be Aspirant's Climb, which we're very familiar with when it comes to the Aurora Civer playstyle. We're playing Triferian War Camp on the Darius side to get a +1 on all units at that battlefield. We're going to see that the Darius is going to be choosing to go first. If you're ever curious, it's by the red outline you can see on the play border here. And I am just going to mulligan the Volibear's hand. They've got, you can see, very large units. A 7 energy, 7 might, a 4 energy, 3 might, which will be very important in a moment, a 5 energy, 5 might, and a 5 energy, 5 might as well. So everything except one card would meet the qualifications for the Volibear Legend ability, which is when you play one of those Mighty Legends, you will exhaust him and play a rune exhausted. It is a really easy way for him to tempo out his play. Now, as for the Darius, we'll see here that he has a very nice opening hand, and there's a very interesting, and I'm going to explain it. We won't be doing it in this matter, but you can actually, for a lack of better words, actually get your Darius Legend out on turn 1 if you go second. And the way it works is you would have 3 runes instead of 2. So if I was to tap the next one here, and then if you had the Seal of Rage rather than Seal of Unity, which allows you to add red energy on play, what you can do is you can float 1 red energy and use the red power in order to play out the Seal of Rage. And because you have played a card this turn, you trigger Darius' Legend abilities ability, which says you can add 1 might this turn. And with the 3 floating, the 3 plus the 1 here, you can do some really fun things. And one of those is obviously on a turn 2 play, you can bring up the Darius on your if you went first, sorry, not if you went second. On turn 2, if you went first, you can bring out Darius really quickly because of that. It is a really powerful ability he has there. But for his turn, he'll be tapping these 2 and bringing out the Carrion Dredger. The alternative was actually to float the yellow rune and then bring out the seal and then tap the Darius, so you use 3 energy to bring out the Vanguard Captain. But at this stage of the game, it's a real make or break when it comes to deramping or reducing the number of your runes you have available when it comes to your first couple turns, because you're in this really awkward position if you can't afford most of your hand. And if you lose, let's say if she played out this unit, obviously you should get, I say she, Darius, Vanguard Captain, she. Darius, if Darius was to play out this, obviously they'd get at the Vanguard Captain and 2 recruits, which would be a really nice tempo play. But if this dies and there's nothing for those recruits to do, then you're just left with an empty board and you start your turn 2 with -1 runes, and that can get really awkward. But for now, we are just going to leave it as is, and it's going to come the Volibear's turn. They have 3 runes, and they can do nothing, so for them, they really don't have anything, so they pass. Volibear's entire playstyle is, while he have a very early weakness, he'll be able to do very little, unless you were to play a version of Darius, Volibear, that utilizes the early game a bit more effectively. Which most Volibears don't. They're more based on what is known as the mid to late game, where you're looking at heavier units, bigger units, combos become crazy because there's multiple things that can go on, and Volibear here really likes to just kind of run the enemy down purely through numbers, which we might see if we get lucky. If we move on to the Darius's turn now, they drew a baited hook, if we remember, or if you've ever had an experience with baited hook. It is a really interesting and unique card that can really change the way the game is played in a lot of ways. We're going to see that 3 runes are going to be tapped, and they're going to bring out the baited hook. And what they're going to do is they are going to recycle 1 yellow rune in order to bring out the Seal of Strength and the Seal of Strength. Both the Seal of Strength and baited hook are gear. They come in ready unless otherwise specified. And then they're going to tap the Darius, because they've played more than 1 card this turn, to create 1 energy, and they're going to tap the Seal of Unity to create 1 yellow power, and the baited hook, which requires that 1 energy and 1 yellow power, and they're going to kill the Carrion Dredger. And the baited hook, just as a reminder for a lot of people, says that you can kill the friendly unit, then you look at the top 5 cards of your main deck, and you decide between those 5 which unit you would like to play, but it can only be a unit that has up to 1 more might than the unit you killed. So in this case, we're killing Carrion Dredger, which means that we could play a unit up to 2 might. However, before we resolve this, what we're going to do is we're going to say we've just made the 1 energy and 1 yellow power. We're going to move Carrion Dredger in here, and we're going to say we're going to score. There is nothing the Volibear can do. He has no spells, let alone units, and there's nothing that the Darius needs to do, so they go to 1. Now we're going to tap the baited hook and target the Carrion Dredger. Why do we do it in that way? Well, it makes sense because, yes, we get to get a point rather than just kill the Dredger, but also because of Triferian War Camp, you actually get a +1 to that unit on death, which means instead of it being a 1, it's a 2 right now. And that means that we, instead of have a limitation of 1 and 2 might units, we actually have a limit up to 3 might units. Now we are going to resolve that matter by revealing the top 5 cards of our main deck, and we can see 1 is a 4 might, that's off the board. 1's a 3 might, absolutely available to us. 1's a spell, useless. 1's a 3 might, that's another really ample opportunity there, and this one is a replacement of the Carrion Dredger. Now, of these options, this has the availability of, the ability that says you can actually kill. When you play me, each player must kill 1 of their units. The opponent has no units worth killing at the moment, so it's pointless. So the only other real viable option is the Vanguard Captain, which means that we can, because it's also going to be played after an additional card this turn, which was the Seal and the Baited Hook, these 2 cards here, we get the 2 recruits. So we're going to play that one and recycle the rest, and to create 2 recruits. Now, Vanguard Captain says that you must create the 2 recruit tokens here. Here being wherever you put Vanguard Captain, they must go with her. Carrion Dredger has not officially died yet. If we remember our chain, technically Carrion Dredger died and then we put Baited Hook on the chain, which means that everything that occurs because of Baited Hook must be finalized before we can move on to the first step, which was Carrion Dredger. We are going to see that the Vanguard Captain is going to make their way onto that battlefield, and that has now resolved the Baited Hook, and we can get rid of the line to show it. And the Carrion Dredger will now die. Carrion Dredger's death knell says, when I die, play a 1 Might Bird token with deflect to your base. It specifies where, so it's not like we could have played it to the battlefield, but we can see that is now being played to the base. Now that they have done that, they've got 1 energy remaining, they're going to say, you know what, that's cool, but I pass. What have you got going on? Well, for the Volibear, for better or worse, they now are at 5 energy, and we can see here that we have a 5 might, and another 5 might, and a 3 might for energy. So we've really got 3 cards here that we could play. And First Instinct is really telling us, let's just go for the value on his legend ability that says that we can get the +1 rune, which would be either of these 2 options. But there's another thing we need to think about here, and is what is the value of this card? And it says, your dragon's energy costs are reduced by 2 to a minimum of 1. Now, while we could technically play either of these, and it'll cost us 5 this turn, and then next turn we'll have 7 runes and we can play out this, or one of these 2 cards, and maybe the Show of Strength. if we play out Herald of Scales this turn, we will go to 6. Sorry, we would have gone to 8 because of this. We will go to 7 next turn, but because of the reduction on this, it means that we can play Gentle Gem Dragon, which actually has the ability that says when you play me or another dragon, ready up to 2 runes. So we'll have spent 6 on him, which would leave us with, if we can do math very quickly, we would have 7 runes next turn. We spend 6 of them, which will remain us with 3 runes, which would be enough to play a Show of Strength. Or if we pulled out a, let's say, Doondrake, because that's a dragon, that would be worth less than, it would have a decreased energy cost of 2. We can now get 2 dragons out next turn, meaning that we'd have 3 units in total for the turn coming. And it's those kind of interesting opportunistic plays that you can make with this deck that makes it such a fascinating deck to play. Obviously we don't get the legend ability, that sucks, but don't worry, it's not going to be the end of the world. We're just going to play this out and we're going to pass and say, hey look, congratulations, you go up to 2 points. That's nothing to be afraid of. When it comes to these kind of plays, it's also really important to think in your head, okay, who am I playing? If I'm playing a red, a purple, or a green, they have, and sometimes a blue, and sometimes a yellow, and sometimes an orange, but mainly a red deck and a purple deck have really aggressive ways of reaching into your opponent's base. I mentioned green because there are some cards such as Charm that are able to pull you around, or Skyward Strike, which is similar to Charm, but actually costs a bit more and it can be a stun. And blue can do it too. As I say, there's a bunch of asterisks, but when it comes to your colors that can do it effectively and consistently, your 2 main ones are purple and red. That is because they're highly aggressive colors and they're highly disruptive colors. You could add blue onto that list because there are a large number of cards that can reach into the opponent's base, but the number of cards in blue that deal damage that would mean that that person would die, limited. I'm thinking at the moment Starcrossed and maybe a few other, not Starcrossed, Singularity, and maybe a few others, but for the purposes of this, we know that they've got nothing, but also that's the thinking, that's the reasoning behind it. Now onto the Darius' turn, they're going to play the bird, or move the bird into the Aspirant's Climb and go up to 3 points. Now they are thinking, I've got a few options. Let us begin by, for 1 yellow rune and the Seal of Unity, doesn't have to be a yellow rune, it's just the one that was there, we are going to kill the Vanguard Captain. She is currently a 4 might because of Triferian War Camp. I could if I wanted to, just 1, 2, 3, 4. I won't do this for all of them, but I will do it during battles, do the counter. Just note that this battlefield exists. In a real game, on a real map, you won't have dice constantly there. You just have to remind yourself that that is a thing that exists, and that comes with a lot of practice and a lot of mistakes. People consistently make the mistake of believing that what they see immediately in front of them is the result. There is nothing else to do, and it is very unlikely that is going to be 100% of the time the case. A great example of that is Ahri. I will show a game of Ahri later on. She has a really fascinating deck to play against because her legend ability is all attacking units get -1. Well, all units that attack me get -1, which is really fascinating and has some really interesting implications. But moving on, the baited hook will now trigger, and we will look at the top 5 cards of our main deck, and we'll see that actually, yes, so they've got the baited hook again, we're not going to play that. They've got a spell, we can't play that. And then we do have one of those really aggressive red spells, which is Falling Star, which says, do this twice, deal 3 damage to a unit. You can choose different units. In this circumstance, the Herald of Scales would be very much so dead. But they're going to die in a different way, because the last one is a Seal of Unity, but the only unit they have valid to play is Safety Inspector, which says when you play me, each player must kill one of their units. If you paid my additional cost, which is the the first line of text here, which says you may spend 3 experience as additional cost to play me, means you don't have to. But they've only got one valid target, and they've got a very good target, and as such they are going to play it. They are going to play it to this battlefield. Its trigger will now go on the chain, which means that both players must kill a unit. We're going to see that the Darius is going to kill one of their 2 recruits, and the poor Volibear only has the Herald of Scowls as a choice. That resolves, and now with everything else resolved, the Vanguard captain will pass away. With 4 remaining runes, we are going to see for 3 recycle 1, a Jhin brought out to this battlefield. And you might be wondering, why did you not play out the Vanguard captain? And it's because technically, while we did play out this unit, the value in this card isn't there just yet. Yes, you could have done it, and yes, you could have done some really interesting where you now have 2 more recruits over here. The reason is because at the moment we're not seeing a big threat from the Volibear. We don't need the numbers per se, we need the strength, we need the protection. And a unit such as Jhin, who is currently a 5 might, is a really, really strong unit that can create a strong front in time for us to hopefully just wait out and see Vi, which is a 5 might, will be even more powerful. They will pass their turn, and we're going to see the Volibear now have theirs. We're going to see for 5, they're going to bring up the Doomdrake. Because the Doomdrake is mighty, they're going to give it, they're going to be able to channel a rune Exhausted. And with 2 runes remaining, they are going to tap to recycle 1 to play Show of Strength. Now, Show of Strength says, draw 1 for each of your mighty units. Currently, we only have 1. And so we're only going to draw 1. That will resolve, and we'll see it's another Doomdrake, and they will pass. It is now the Darius's turn. They will get 2 points for holding. And they've just drawn another Safety Inspector. We have now seen all 3 Safety Inspectors out of this Darius. The main question becomes, though, do we want to play this from hand or raw? Or do we want to just kind of wait on it, see if there's something bigger that can be a bit more of a concern, because at the moment it's 5-0, and there is not many ways that they're going to get through a 5, a 4, and a 2 might set. And yes, this is only 1, but if they conquer here, sure, they go up to 1, we go up to 6. It's a 3 points until victory. And keep in mind, if we play nothing this turn, we can actually play out the Vi Peacekeeper, because it has Ambush, which is a tag which allows us to play units during a showdown. We could play Vi to this battlefield and ensure they go nothing. So, with all that in mind, we're pretty happy. We're instead going to say, look, I'm actually going to just tap the Seal of Unity. I'm going to hide a card at this battlefield. It's Hidden Blade, but if we see here, it's actually hidden. And we're just going to move on. That we have nothing else to worry about. And now it becomes the Volibear's turn again. And they're going to, for 8 energy, play out the Gentle Gem Dragon, which, as we mentioned earlier, when you play me or another dragon, ready 2 runes. We ready up the 2 runes, we exhaust the Volibear Legend, and with the 3 runes remaining, we're just going to say, look, we're not there yet. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. And with that, the Volibear passes, and the Darius actually goes up to 7 points, which is truly, truly terrifying in some ways. Sorry about that. But the Volibear is not too worried, and we'll see why shortly. Now, the Darius, as I mentioned, goes up to 7, and we pulled the Carrion Dredger. Now, Carrion Dredger is a unit that does sometimes want to die, and as such, we're going to tap 2 runes to play the Carrion Dredger to the Trifarian War Camp, because if we remember, it's currently a 1, but it goes up to 2, and then on death we can play anything that has 3 or a might that way. Which is exactly what we'll do. We'll see the 1 and the seal for the Baited Hook. The Baited Hook is going to put Carrion Dredger on the chain, and then the Baited Hook, I'm going to just show it in this format so it makes more sense when you visualize it. Which means the Baited Hook will now trigger. And of our units, we have one that we cannot play, unfortunately. We have another one we cannot play, unfortunately. We have one that we cannot play, unfortunately, and we have one that we can play. And the last one was the baited hook. So we're going to put the honest broker there. That will now be played to the Trifarian War Camp as well. Now the baited hook will resolve, which means the Carrion Dredger will resolve, and its death knell will trigger, putting a bird to base, and it dies. With 5 runes, but technically 6 because of the Darius Legend ability, we do have available to us every card at our disposal. But at the moment, we're not too worried. Like I said, we like where we are. There's no reason, I should really tap that, sorry. There's no reason for us to worry. So we'll pass and we'll say, look, we have a lot of runes, fight me. And we'll see on the Volibear's side, they drew out Falling Star, which allows them to deal 3 damage to 2 units. Which in the circumstances would be the Safety Inspector, which is actually at 4 health, so that wouldn't even kill. I take that back. It'd be the Recruit or the Honest Broker, and maybe the Bird, but if we target the Bird, it has Deflect, which means we'd be paying an additional rune just to bring that out, and that is very expensive for essentially a one that would die anyway as soon as we fight it. So the Volibear looks back at what they've got as options, and they decide, well, for 7, I'm actually going to play Direwing, and Direwing says if I enter ready if you control another dragon. So it enters ready because we control actually 2 dragons in the circumstances. And because we played a dragon, we get to ready 2 more runes. And then we're going to go and play, I don't know, let's play another Direwing. And so as such, we will tap 7 runes and bring out another Direwing and ready 2 runes because, well, we played a dragon. And then we're going to now, for 2, recycle 1 and recycle 2. We are going to target the Honest Broker and the Recruit. The reason we don't target the Xin Zhao twice is because, well, we could, but it's better to get rid of what is currently 3, 4, 5 might rather than a 5 isolated might, because there's certain ways that they could potentially bolster multiple units rather than bolstering a single unit. It is a net even play in some ways, but you can see kind of why it might be different if this is a 2 and a 2, because technically that's 6 rather than just a single 5 with tank. With that, it'll be put on the chain because it is an action, or sorry, it is a spell. The opponent can respond with reactions if they wish, and they're going to choose not to. So instead, they will die. Now, Honest Broker has the Death Knell, which says when I die, you play a Golden Gear token exhausted to base, and that will die. This battlefield got a lot less scary all of a sudden. And so we're going to go, well, that's a 5, that's a 4, so it's a 9. Let us figure out what we want to run in with. Currently, if we move this Doomdrake in, it'll actually be a 7 because these 2 are ready, and because of the ability of Trifarian, it should be an 8, which means this Doomdrake by itself could actually kill one of them and almost kill another. This Gentle Gem Dragon, however, by himself could actually kill both of these. But what we're going to do instead, we're going to move the Direwing in by itself first, which is now an 8. And I will now do those counters so we can see what we're working with. The Xin Zhao is currently a 5, and the Safety Inspector is a 4. The Direwing the Volibear is tapped out, and so they'll pass priority. It is now the Darius's turn, and they've got a few options. Well, they've actually got one. They could either let this resolve, in which case the Xin Zhao will die and the Safety Inspector will live, or they could play the Vi now. Vi has the ability, when I attack, stun an enemy unit here, which means that if the Vi was to play if the Darius was to play the Vi, they could stun the Direwing, the Dire Wing would deal no combat damage, it would die. But also, the same way the Darius has revealed their entire hand, they would be completely tapped out, which means that whatever the Volibear can do, which would be running with a total might of, in this case, 16, this 6 might addition is not going to be enough. It is actually going to be 1 off. And that, in some ways, is quite terrifying. But it's the only option they have, because if they decide to leave it and the Xin Zhao dies, and it's just a safety inspector, they can then conquer with 1 unit and have 2 units ready to conquer this battlefield. And if we remember, they can't see the hidden blade, but what we would be able to do is instead just have 1 unit run in, and they could still technically conquer, which would be strong for them. And with that in mind, the Darius is going to decide to go for it. They're going to bring out the Vi. The Vi is going to stun the Dire Drake, and the Dire Drake is going to go, well, I can't do anything, I die. Tough. The Darius is going to, not the Darius, the Volibear is going to revisit the choices they have available to them. Because if you remember, this Dire Wing, this Jhin Dragon, and this Dune Drake are currently 7, 8, and 7. But moving into fight, they would be an 8, a 9, and an 8. This Vi is currently a 6, which means that the combined might of this battlefield here, so we don't forget, I'll put this counter here, is a 15 might battlefield. We can move in 2 of these units to overcome that might difference, and both players are tapped out completely, so they wouldn't have many options remaining to them, and it would have to be a trade. There's not much point in moving the Gentle Gem Dragon because, well, these 2 units do exactly what they need to do, and this one, if it can stay in base, will have better value next turn if there's a next turn. As such, they'll move these 2 in. It will be a 16 to 15, and then that means that they get to choose what they do, and they're going to kill the Dire Wing. The Dire Wing will die. The reason they don't choose the Dune Drake is because the Dune Drake only gets their +2 on attack, so less important. But for the Darius, they lose everything else, and the Volibear has got a choice. He could move the Gentle Gem Dragon into the Aspirant's Climb. They get a point for the conquer, sorry. They can move the Gentle Gem Dragon into the battlefield and conquer, or and trigger potentially the Hidden Blade. Or they could decide to stay in base and go, hey, look, I'm not winning this turn, and chances are, if that is a Hidden Blade, sure, I get a 2 draw, but you hold on to that battlefield and you just need a way to get rid of my 6 might. I am not going to risk it. Instead, I'm just going to move my Gentle Gem Dragon into the Triferian War Camp, bringing it up to a total of might of 15. Because that is going to be a lot harder to deal with than a 6 by itself. And the Gentle Gem Dragon in base is going to be a little less effective. While it is a lot more open to being killed through things such as Hidden Blade, or other things that target battlefields exclusively, it's better to take the risk for the Volibear in hopes they get another turn, as opposed to, well, tough, I'm going to keep it in base because you never know. As for the Darius, they're going to go up to 8 points, and remember, Aspirant's Climb means this actually goes up to 9 points this game. They are going to play out for 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the gold, they're going to play out Safety Inspector. Now, Safety Inspector, because they don't have any experience, means they must kill one of their own units, and in this case, they'll be killing their bird in base. The reason that they don't have to pay the deflect cost to target their own unit is because it only requires opponents to pay the additional fee for targeting a unit. Now, for the next part, they're going to, for 1, 2, 3, and recycle and use the Seal of Unity, bring out the Vanguard Captain, and bring out 2 recruits. Now, there was an alternative, the Volibear is actually going to kill their Dune Drake in this circumstances. Now, there was a play style in which you actually kill the bird at this battlefield, fizzling the Hidden Blade, and then you would use the the 4 here and the +1 from here in order to bring out the Darius, putting him to 7. Because you would have played him as your second card, or you would have played your second card, that would put him to 8. But if we remember, because he's at 7 moving into 8, that's still a 9. You need another unit here in order to overcome that difference, which would have to be the other bird. But then if we think about what happens then, it's a trade. Oh, sorry, it's not a trade because technically the bird would be a +1, and that would have been the win, but that's foresight actually. That's me forgetting about Triferian Warcamp as I tell you about Triferian Warcamp. But no, that would have been the win, is actually if you played out the Safety Inspector for 5, and then for the Legion trigger on here for a +1, you would have 10 energy, you bring out the Darius, it would become readied because it would be a second unit. Yes, you would have fizzled on this battlefield, but you would have still conquered on this battlefield or held. And then you move in with a combined 8 and then 2 to overcome the 9. So that is a missed win from me. That is a whiff. It is what it is. I'm only human. We will not trigger the baited hook in these circumstances because while it is beneficial, it's not currently... We don't want to do it. We're kind of more interested in seeing what we can do next turn. It's not the end of the world. The Volibear is going to go up to 2 points, and they're going to be playing out a few cards this turn. For 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they'll be playing out a Blazing Scorcher to this battlefield, which will immediately go up to 6 energy, no, 6 might. And because they played a dragon, they get to ready 2 more. And now for all 9, recycle 2, we're going to be playing out Kssden the Infernal. Kssden the Infernal says when you play me, draw 1 for each of your mighty units. In this circumstance, we have 1 and 2, and technically, because he is in play when you play him, he counts to 3rd. So we'll see that we will now draw 3 cards for the Volibear, and Kssden will be placed to this battlefield, having a total might of 10. We will now be pulling back the Gentle Gem Dragon, so it does not die as easily. But because we played Kssden the Infernal, we can ready up to 2 runes. And now we're going to use those 2 runes and recycle 1 in order to play out Challenge. We are going to use the Kssden the Infernal and the bird on this battlefield, recycling 1 because we are targeting the bird in order to attack it. The opponent is going to respond by revealing the Hidden Blade. As we can see, it is now revealed. And they are going to be targeting their own bird. Now, it's really interesting to note that while Hidden Blade technically has an action speed and would match the speed of the challenge, hidden cards are classified as reaction. Regardless of what is printed on the card, once a card is hidden, it becomes reaction speed, which means that this card will now die. Instead of being challenged, it will die to the Hidden Blade, which means the Darius will draw 2. That will resolve, the bird will die, the challenge fizzles, but they no longer control this battlefield, which means they do not score up to 9 through holding this turn. They will now pass because they are out of runes, and the story goes. I'll get rid of that counter on the Gentle Gem Dragon, and we'll move over to the Darius's turn. Now, they drew an Inferna, an Honest Broker for the Hidden Blade, and then they've drawn a Spectral Matron this turn. The only card that I'm kind of interested in all of them, but at the moment, Xin Zhao would enter ready because there are 2 units. Well, there's actually 4, but there's 2 units at space. So we'll begin by playing for 3, recycle 1, or in this case tapping the seal. Xin Zhao. Xin Zhao has tank as well, which is nice. The other thing I'm looking at is now we can play Darius for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, recycle 1. Bring out the Darius. Because he is the second card this turn, or we have played our second card this turn, and it just so happens to be in, he is given +2 this turn and readied. Which means he is immediately up to 7. Now I'm just going to preemptively on her, and him put those counters. And that is because we're about to see a win. The Darius moves in first, And then we're also going to bring in the Zinzao, who goes up to 5. Now, all of a sudden, this is a 13 against 16. And then we're going to bring in this recruit, which is a 2, and this recruit, which is a 2. And all of a sudden, we have on one side, in the red, we have Volibear with a combined might of 16. On the other battlefield, we have 13, 15, 17. We're also going to move in the Vanguard Captain as Assurance, bringing us actually to 21. There is nothing the Volibear can do in these circumstances, and must concede the battlefield. They will take for all of their victories everything but the 2 recruits, however. And the Darius, because it is match point, cannot score, so instead they will draw. However, they will now move the Safety Inspector over to this battlefield, scoring to 9. In these circumstances, the Gentle Gem Dragon would have actually made a bit of a difference. But also, if the opponent had moved in, they could have chosen to not kill the the Blazing Scorcher in this circumstance, and instead killed Kssden the Infernal and the Gentle Gem Dragon, which means the following turn, the Gentle Gem Dragon would have not been there to hopefully accelerate the Volibear's ability to play these units. There is another world also, where Volibear Furious could have come out, but because his ability is only on attack, he's not as exciting. So it is what it is. We'll now move on to game 2. We're going to see some sideboarding. In fact, actually, if I bring this over to the other screen, we can do some sideboarding together. Let's see, there we are. So we can see here that on the Volibear side of things, they've got a few cards available. Against the odds is really good against swarm decks, multiple unit decks, and so we'd be possibly looking at bringing this in. Challenge, we just saw Challenge is really strong. Flurry of Blades doesn't make sense by itself, which is deal 1 damage to all units at battlefields, but it is quite strong, and I think that'll also be one we bring in. Repulse is choose a friendly unit at a battlefield, counter an enemy ability or spell that chooses it and no other friendly units. This is a really great way of countering Hidden Blades, but that's kind of where it ends. Falling Star automatically usually targets 2 units, so it's less powerful. And those are the only 2 spells we saw. Everything else was an ability that we had some ability to control. We had some autonomy over it, and so it doesn't count. Stormbringer, which is Volibear's signature ability, says choose a friendly unit in your base, deal damage equal to its might to all enemy units at a battlefield, then move your unit there. Really good way of clearing out a thick battlefield, and that might be one we also bring in. The last one is Unyielding Spirit, which presents prevent all spell and ability damage this turn. Now, this would be really powerful if we were seeing a consistent number of spells being played on a single turn, but that's just not happening, and so I don't think that's the one to go for. The 3 we're really looking at now are going to be Stormbringer, Flurry of Blades, and Against the Odds. And because of that, we're going to be looking at what have we got that we didn't really get some good use out of. And in this case, I'm thinking Punch First, single unit might, strong, but we're not seeing the opponent have a large number of bigger units, a large number of smaller units, and so a +5 on a single unit, just not going to be the real big difference maker in some ways. So that will go, and we'll bring in the Stormbringer to begin with. Show of Strength, really good for draw, can't get rid of it. Sky Splitter is a very expensive power of 8 with 1 red, 8 energy, 1 red power, but the spell's energy cost is reduced by the highest might unit you control, and if we think about Kssden the Infernal, which is actually a 9, this becomes free, 1 red power for 5 damage to a unit at a battlefield, but as I mentioned, single target spells are not as powerful, so we'll actually get rid of one of those and bring out a Flurry of Blades, because Flurry of Blades deals with birds and it deals with recruits immediately. That's the tip of the iceberg on that one. Now we've got one other card that we're really looking at in this case, and that was Against the Odds. Give a friendly unit at a battlefield +2 this turn for each enemy unit there. Really powerful against swarms, but I'm thinking at this stage we don't need it. Instead, we're just going to say this is it. We have sideboarded out. Now we move over to the Darius. Now Darius won that game. He did it with very limited use of the baited hook, but he still nonetheless used it. But where did we run into issues with? Well, once those bigger units started coming out, we really started to struggle with it. If we look here, we've got Cull the Weak. Each player kills one of their units. Super strong, and would be a really easy way for us to stop that tempo that the Volibear tried to build early. Falling Star's Falling Star. It was kind of useful, but at the same time, it wasn't too upsetting seeing it go. Imperial Decree. When any unit takes damage this turn, kill it. Beautiful double-edged sword. And can be really good in Swarm decks at just kind of throwing out a 1 might recruit into a 13 might unit. And so I think we'll bring this one in. So we're looking at 2 currently. Next we have Salvage. You may kill a Gear Drawn. The opponent didn't have any gears, so there's no point in bringing in Salvage. Ash Focused is a unit that says when you play me, choose an opponent, they reveal their hand, choose a card revealed this way, and banish it. When they hold, being when the opponent you chose holds, return it to their hand. And the last one is the Vi. Now the Vi was quite powerful, and I think that we like the Vi, but I don't know if we like 2 Vis. Looking over the deck, we like these 2 cards, we're not getting rid of that. We could possibly get rid of this, but it's not going to be the end of the world. Grand Stratagem, give for all friendly units +5 this turn, would be really powerful as a way to just completely obliterate an opponent's deck. Hidden Blade was good, but we saw one of them. Seeing more of them would be really powerful, just being able to kill those bigger units. We only really used it on ourselves, but it did make a bit of a difference. Rally the Troops. When a friendly unit is played this turn, buff it, which is just giving it +1 might, and draw 1. I don't know if we need 3 copies of this, but I can kind of see it. Shadow's Call. Choose a friendly unit without temporary, give it temporary and draw 2. With these spells in mind, we could look into the units, but I'm not too worried at this stage about the units. I'm thinking we don't want to bring in too many. We're thinking 1, 2 cards. Maybe a 1 Ash Focused as a nice sideboard. So I'm thinking let's get rid of 1 Rally the Troops and bring in the Cull the Weak. Let's actually get rid of the Falling Star and bring in the Imperial Decree. And let's leave it there. Much like we said with Volibear, if we need it, we can come back for it. However, for the Volibear, it's more if we need it, we've already lost. We're going to see the Arena's Greatest come out. Now, the way that I choose battlefields, and a lot of people choose battlefields, is you usually have your neutral battlefield. The battlefield that you don't mind if you're going first or second on. For Volibear, usually Aspirant's Climb, because it's a really strong medium play. The other 2 are also very strong medium plays. This kind of Volibear deck doesn't mind going first or second, it just minds kind of playing the game. For Darius, his median is the Trifarian Warcamp. It's really strong, regardless if you get there first or second, because it provides the same bonus first or second. First or second being if you're attacking or you're defending. Arena's Greatest is a really, really powerful token to go if you are going first, because it's a way to get the preemptive unit on the board and hopefully accelerate the gameplay so that it ends before the opponent can really begin setting up. And into this Volibear, that's actually really, really powerful. Now, the last battlefield is when you conquer here, you may pay 1 energy and return a unit you control to your owner's hand. That's a really good one if you're going second, and I think we're going to see the Emperor's Dais come out. And we're actually going to see the Rockfall Path come out for the Volibear, and that's because Rockfall Path, units can't be played here, is a really, really strong counter to Baited Hook, because if you kill the unit at the battlefield, you cannot put a unit at that battlefield to continue holding the control of the battlefield. You can only put them back to base. With those 2 options out of the way, let us move back over to the spectator screen, and let us begin by Volibear choosing to go first and the Mulligan stage. I won't be showing the Mulligan stage, just because we're going to be quickly running through it. We're going to see the Volibear Mulligan 1, and we're going to see the Darius Mulligan 0. The Volibear is going to pass. We do, however, see just this card will get there, but that's a very strong card to have in hand. The Darius is going to for... Now, there is technically a way for us to get out the Noxus Hopeful this turn. Actually, no, we don't even need to do it. Okay, they're going to play out the Honest Broker for 2, and then for 1 energy and the Legend ability, because it's Legion, they're going to bring out the Noxus Hopeful. Noxus Hopeful has the Legion ability of it costs 2 less, so we're seeing a really strong synergy play here, where on turn 1 they have a combined might of 6 already. They pass. With 4 runes available, the Volibear is going to pass again. Then they say, well, tough luck me, I've got nothing to do. It is now the Darius' turn. They unfortunately drew both of their seals this turn, or in their hand, but that's okay, because it could work out. The Darius is going to move the Honest Broker into the Rockfall path and score to 1. And then they're going to move the Noxus Hopeful and score to 2. Now, are they wanting to trigger Emperor's Darius? Or Dies, whatever it is. Dies. I'm sure there's a proper way of saying it. I'm pretty sure it'd be available on Google. However, we're not there. When you conquer here, you may pay 1 energy and return a unit you control here to its owner's hands. If you do, play a 2 Knight Sand Soldier token here. So we'd go down to 4 energy and would get a 2 energy Sand Soldier. But now, do we care that much? Yes, we do actually. We're going to pay the 1, and we're going to return the Noxus Hopeful to hand and play a Sand Soldier to this battlefield. Then for 2, we're going to play the Carrion Dredger to base, and then for an additional 2, we're going to play the Noxus Hopeful to base. And then we're going to pass. Now you might be wondering, well, why didn't instead of the Carrion Dredger you play out the baited hook? That is a great question I don't have an answer for. I just saw one line in my head and went, that works. Oh, actually, I do have an answer for that, but no, I don't actually. I lie. I don't. We're just going to leave it as is. But that is an alternative. You could have brought out the baited hook this turn. But we're not going to worry. We pass. It is now the Volibear's turn. It is now turn where they have 6 might available to them. And for 2, 3, 4, 5, they're going to bring out the Blazing Scorcher and exhaust their legend in order to bring out an exhausted rune. And they're going to tap 1, recycle 1 for a Sabotage. Now, Sabotage says choose an opponent, they reveal their hand, choose a non-unit card from it, recycle that card. Well, they've got a very easy option to see. I promise I did not pre-plan this. This is not a way for me to throw the game for Darius. This is just me completely blindsiding myself and then realizing there's a really good play here. The baited hook will go to the very bottom of the Darius's deck, and the Volibear will pass their turn, and it is now Darius's turn. They score up to 4 points this turn, which means they're already halfway to winning. They're again going to move the Carrion Dredger into this battlefield, and then they're going to tap 2 runes. They're going to recycle 1 yellow to play out a seal. Then they're going to use that seal to play out the seal, and then they're going to use that seal in order to play Hidden Blade, targeting their Carrion Dredger. They're now going to draw 2 cards, and the Hidden Blade will resolve, and the Carrion Dredger will die, creating a bird at the base, and that will resolve. And we can see here they've drawn their other 2 Honest Brokers. That is, they're seeing some misshuffled hands going on. If this was an over-the-board kind of game, I'd ask the opponent, did you even shuffle? Very, very unfortunate. For 1, 2, 3, 4, they're going to play out both Honest Brokers, and they're going to be both played to this battlefield. Now, obviously, they can't be played to this battlefield. That must remain as is. But they pass. They go, cool. You know what? It sucks, but it is what it is. It is now the Volibear's turn, and for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they're going to play out the Gentle Gem Dragon. Because they played out the Gentle Gem Dragon, they get to exhaust the Volibear to bring out 1 rune exhausted, and the Gentle Gem Dragon will allow them to ready 2 runes as they played a dragon. For those 2 runes, they're going to play the Dragon Soul Sage, which says reaction, exhaust me to add 1 energy. That's just it. There's nothing else special to it. And they will pass. The Darius will now go up to 6 points, and they are going to, for 1, 2, 3, 4, and their 2 Seals of Unity, play out Spectral Matron. Now, Spectral Matron, if we look, says, when you play me, you may play a unit costing no more than 3 energy and 1 power from your trash, ignoring its cost. If we look here, they've got one option, which means that for the Carrion Dredger, because they are ignoring its cost, comes out for free, and will be played to the Emperor's Dais. The Noxus Hopeful will now move to the Rockfall Path, same with the Friendly Little Bird, and then for 1, 2, 3, 4, and the Legion ability of the Darius Legend, 5, recycle 1 red, we're going to see Darius has come out. Now, because we've played more than our second card this turn, he technically could trigger. However, there's concern regarding the requirements as he was not in play to see the second card being played, and as such, it doesn't actually work. It seems very counterintuitive, does it not? Like, oh my goodness, you've played more than one card, it makes sense, but no, because he has to witness the second card being played, even if it's him. He doesn't actually get to be ready to this turn, which means he cannot move into this battlefield, nor do I want to play him to this battlefield. He will live in base. And we'll see a pass. It is now the Volibear's turn. Keep in mind, if the Darius holds both of these battlefields, they win. We don't really want that to happen for the Volibear in some ways. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then the Dragon Soul Sage for 12, and then for 1, 2, 3, and 4 body runes, we're going to play our Elder Dragon. Now, Elder Dragon is a truly fascinating card we saw last time that we are now going to trigger. We are going to be targeting the Honest Broker, the Noxus Hopeful, and the Darius Triferian. There is no way for this to be countered, so the Honest Broker will die at this battlefield, creating a gold gear token exhausted. The Noxus Hopeful will die at this battlefield, and the Darius at home will also die. The Elder Dragon will now be played, and because it was a dragon, you ready 2 runes, and because it was mighty, you can bring out 1 rune exhausted. For those last 2 runes, and one of the orange ones, we're going to play Show of Strength, which allows us to draw 1, 2, 3 cards. And we're going to just move in. We're going to move the Blazing Scorcher over here, which is a 5 into a 3, and that will now die. The Honest Breaker will create a gold at base, and the Darius will go up to 1 point. Now the question is, do we want to move the Gentle Dream Dragon over to this battlefield, or do we want to move the Gentle Gem Dragon into this battlefield? So we've got option 1, and we've got option 2. The reasoning behind moving it to Rockfall Path is we say, look, we don't really mind. We really don't mind if you continue holding this battlefield. You can go to 7 next turn, but with a combined might of 5 and 8, so 13, it's very unlikely that you will be able to play a unit to your base and get it both or all that might to this battlefield in 1 turn. The other player's Gentle Gem Dragon moves here and goes, cool, you have a combined might of 5. This is an 8. Because of Elder Dragon, technically I only need 3 to get rid of you chumps. And that would remove you completely off the battlefield. But it would also spread my might a little thin. Thin being 8 and 5. So in many ways, you've got a really strong balance here of what is the win condition for you at this stage. Is it trying to prevent the opponent from holding or scoring? We don't want the opponent to hold. So as such, we could be moving into here, but we don't mind them holding 1 more turn. And realizing in the back end, we've actually got the Stormbringer, which says choose a friendly unit in your base, deal its might to all enemies at a battlefield, and we can throw the Elder Dragon and push all these out for free. Because the Elder Dragon would then be moved to that battlefield. Alternatively, we could be playing out a Dire Wing, which comes in readied. We've got a good number of options to clear this battlefield without truly fighting at that battlefield. The Darius is out of cards, so technically now would be the safest to do it. But also, we don't want to run into the risk of moving, let's say, into this battlefield and then having a way to kill it, and then them having a way to, like, let's say, bring up Braided Hook, and then they and then they are able to move the Spectral Matron. They kill the Spectral Matron for a safety inspector, and all of a sudden one of my units is dead, and I'm a bit concerned, but I don't see that happening. So I'm actually going to move over here, and I'm going to say good luck. And the Darius is going to go, well, cool, you gave me an extra gold, and you gave me a bird. But otherwise, you know what, that kind of sucked. The Volibear will go to 2 points, and we'll pass. And we'll see here the opening card was in fact Baited Hook. They will now, for 2, play that Baited Hook, targeting the Gentle Gem Dragon. The Gentle Gem Dragon on death, obviously with the controller being me, I draw 2. But it will die. They will now move the bird over to this battlefield, scoring to 7. And they are just going to pass and say, hey, look, you're probably going to kill the bird, but I killed your Gentle Gem Dragon. Sucks to suck. And we're going to say, yeah, it kind of does, actually. There's not many things we can do right now. Hypothetically, actually, we have a lot of things we can do. In fact, one of them is just to play Flurry of Blades, dealing 1 damage and killing the bird. Keep in mind that the Flurry of Blades does not require you to choose your opponents or your targets, and as such, the deflect cost is not required to be paid. If it says choose all units at battlefields deal 1 damage, then you must pay the 1 because you're technically choosing. In the same way that Falling Star requires you to choose 2 units, or choose units to deal damage to, or challenge, or, well, actually, this one doesn't because it requires you to choose a friendly and then deal damage to all units, so not choosing. But I digress. For 7, we play Direwing, and we bring Direwing and move it in. The bird will die, and we'll score up to 3. I was meant to score up to 4 because I technically held this battlefield. We will not be bringing him back. I played a Mighty unit, so I may now trigger the Volibear. Technically, I should have done that earlier. That's my fault. That is technically something that I missed the trigger. And then I'm going to tap to recycle 1 to play the challenge, using the Elder Dragon to challenge the Spectral Matron. Now, Spectral Matron will die. The Elder Dragon will have taken a total of 4 might damage, meaning he has 6 health remaining, but we will now end the turn healing. The Darius drew a spell that does nothing this turn, and they have to pass. They just have to say, look, I've got no units. What do I do? The Volibear goes up to 6. Then for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they play out a Blazing Scorcher to the Emperor's Dais. They cannot play to this battlefield. And then for 1, 2, recycle 1, they're going to play a Show of Strength. And because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, they get to draw 4 cards. We can see they drew another Falling Star, their 2 remaining Gentle Gem Dragons, and a Kssden the Infernal. But for 4 energy, they don't really have those options available to them, and instead will choose to do nothing. It is now the Darius' turn. They drew a Safety Inspector, which allows both players to kill a unit. However, unfortunately for them, they will now play it. The Volibear will choose to kill their additional Blazing Scorch at the battlefield of Emperor's Dais. And that's all that they can do. Then they pass, and the Volibear goes up to 8. Now, we just saw a really good showing of the ability of Volibear, but like I mentioned, we saw what happens when the Darius doesn't get their Baited Hook out, but also makes the mistake of thinking it's okay. What did we run into as issues for the Volibear? Well, we didn't actually run into any issues. We got the Elder Dragon out, which allowed us to not really worry about the +2 mights, because as soon as we have enough might equal to 1 per unit, it's over. So the Volibear doesn't really feel like doing anything different to their deck this time around. And they're going to choose their final battlefield. However, for the Darius, they're going to think, wow, that really sucked. Maybe I can do something similar as a sabotage, and I'm going to actually bring in 1 Ash to focus, maybe 2, and we're going to get rid of the 2 rally troops. We haven't seen it. Tough luck. And we're going to play our final battlefield, which is Arena's Greatest. And I'm going to choose to go first, and we'll move back over to spectators to do the mulligan stage, which will be very quick and easy. Mulligan that. And we're actually going to see the Volibear have an opening hand of a 2 might. 2 energy. Actually, 2 energies and 1 energy. Wow. The Darius is going to play out the Carrion Dredger. And then for 2 energy, they're going to play out the Dragon Sage, Soul Sage, and pass. It is now the Darius' turn. They're going to move over to this battlefield. Technically, both players start with 1 energy, or 1 point this turn. And so now the Darius is up to 2. Then for 3, they're going to bring out a baited hook. And then for 1 and recycle 1, they're going to bring out not recycle 1 and tap the legend. They're going to bring out Inferna. And they're going to pass. The Volibear is going to, for 1, 2, play out another Dragon Sage Soul. Then for 2, play out the Mobilize, channeling 1 more rune, and resolve that. And they do have an option here, but they're actually going to wait on it. They could play out Flurry of Blades and kill the Carrion Dredger to stop them from scoring, but the Carrion Dredger will bring a bird to home, which then they could just move next turn and score anyway. And the difference in that is that the bird will have the deflect with the same might, so they're not going to worry about that. There's no value right now for it. It is now the Darius' turn. They score to 3. And for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, recycle 1, the Darius is going to play out Ash. Now, Ash, as we mentioned, says, when you play me, choose an opponent, they reveal their hand, choose a card, doesn't matter what card, banish it until that person holds. Their choices are Flurry of Blades, Sky Splitter, and Kssden the Infernal. I'm imagining they're going to choose between these 2. This is a 5 damage and a spell, and this is a unit that draws a lot. They're going to choose to, unfortunately, banish the Kssden. They're now going to move the Inferna over to this battlefield and score to 4. The trigger of Sigil of Storm requires you to recycle 1 rune. Now, the interesting thing about this is technically the Inferna is a 1, but there are things you can do when it comes to assault values and killing units. However, because Baited Hook does not act at reaction or otherwise, the showdown must resolve, and therefore Inferno goes back down to 1 might. But they know that the Flurry of Blades exists, and as such, they're going to tap 1, recycle 1 to kill the Carrion Dredger, putting him on the chain and the baited hook. And we're looking for 1 and 2 mites. And oh, unfortunately, we saw none of them. We saw some really good cards gone. So that is going to be, unfortunately, for the Darius, a missed trigger. The bird will now be spawned from the death knell, and the Darius will pass. It is now the Volibear's turn, and while the Darius is at 3 runes, technically they did go down 1 and 2. They've got 8. That's an insane amount. So for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, play out the Blazing Scorcher, and then exhaust the legend in order to trigger the get 1 rune exhausted. We are now going to see. We've got a few options, but I think we're just going to, for 1, Flurry of Blades, kill the Inferna and pass. I'm going to say, hey, look, I don't really want to score. I don't need a score. You can score, go for it. Now for 5, there's not many options that the Darius has available to them. So for 3, recycle 1, they're going to play out a Zinzao. Zinzao comes in readied because there are 2 or more other units at this base. And the Zinzao is going to move to this battlefield and score to 5. And the Ash is going to move over to this battlefield and score to 6. All that the opponent needs to do at this turn is hold or conquer both battlefields, and they win. And they're going to pass. They could trigger Baited Hook, but they don't really want to get rid of either of these units because they're really big. They're hard to deal with. For Volibear's turn, they're going to play Sky Splitter. Now, Sky Splitter is usually 8, but because the mightiest unit they currently have is a 5, it's actually only a 3. 1, 2, 3. Recycle a red, and they're going to Sky Splitter the Xin Zhao. There was no response from the Darius, and unfortunately the Xin Zhao just passes away. Now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the Doomdrake comes out, and the Blazing Scorcher will now move to this battlefield. Actually, no, this battlefield, sorry. My reasoning is that, yes, we could get a free conquer here, but we actually want to kill the Ash, and that is exactly what will happen. And yes, the trigger will occur, but it's not the end of the world, because we'll actually go up to 11 next turn. Technically, I also missed the trigger of the playing of a mighty unit, but I'm not gonna rewind to that one. That's on me for forgetting again. As for the Darius's turn, they know that they only have to score 1 point next turn, so they're going to move 1 unit over here and score to 7. Then for 1, 2, 3, recycle 1, they're going to play out Xin Zhao. And then they're actually going to tap 2 to play out a Noxus Hopeful. And then they're actually going to use that Noxus Hopeful as a Baited Hook trigger, which means we can now bring out a 5 or more might unit. And across the board, we're actually seeing some really good options. The first one being Xin Zhao, and the other one being Spectral Matron. Funnily enough, if we do Spectral Matron, I bring out the Xin Zhao, because it can be a 3 energy, 1 power, which is exactly what Xin Zhao is. So either way, we're bringing out Xin Zhao, but one of them gets us an additional unit. So we're going to play out the Spectral Matron, and the Noxus Hopeful will not die yet, because the Spectral Matron is now played, and the Spectral Matron will now trigger their playability, which brings in the Xin Zhao, and now the Noxus Hopeful will die. The Xin Zhao was played when there were 2 or more units at the base, which means it is readied. It will now stay in base, because it doesn't want to charge into a 5 as a 4, and will pass. The Volibear held for the turn, which means they can now return the a removed card that the Ash made. And so for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and recycle 2 red, Kssden the Infernal will be played, and we'll get 1, 2, 3 cards for it. Because it was a mighty unit, we can channel 1 Rune Exhausted. And we see we drew 2 Elder Dragons. That's insane. Now we will move the Doomdrake into this battlefield, the bird will die, and the Volibear will score up to 3. Looking at the amount of might in the opponent's battlefield, we've got 4, 8, 12, but they can't combine to that might. But they do have access to a Darius, but they won't have access, they'll have 6 runes, which means they would need exactly a Seal of Unity in order to trigger the Darius's ability, which would put that to 19 might, and they can split that evenly into an 11 and an 11. But at the moment, no combination of these units is able to kill these 2 units. That does not mean we have nothing to be worried about, though. As such, technically, although it is a bit late, we will move the Kssden of the Infernal to this battlefield as though we had played it to that battlefield. The last thing we will do is pass. It is now the Darius's turn, and for 1, 2, 3, 4. My thinking is, do I want to play the Spectral Matron? Do I want to play the Safety Inspector? Spectral Matron would bring another... Actually, no, there's no reason to play Spectral Matron. So it's between the Safety Inspector to force both players to kill 1 unit. In this case, we don't want to kill any of these units. Or do we hold off and play the Peacekeeper as a 5 might drop and find a way to maybe get rid of these 2 units this turn? And I'm thinking that's what we'll do. So we'll preemptively tap 5 recycle 1. but we'll now move these two units, which have a combined might of 8, and this unit, which has a now combined might of 12, and we'll bring the Vi Peacekeeper, and we will stun the Kssden of the Infernal, which means it does no longer deal combat damage. And we'll pass priority, and it moves over to the Darius, the Volibear. There's nothing they can do, and as such, both of the units for Volibear will die. And because the only might dealing damage was the Blazing Scorcher, which deals 5, and technically Vi doesn't have tank, but these two units do have tank, they only kill Xin Zhao. And they get a draw for the point, because it's match point. They cannot win by conquering one, they must conquer both. And as such, they do that in for 1 and so 1 energy, and then the thing they bring out a Noxus Hopeful and play it to this battlefield and pass. It is now the Volibear's turn. They score to 4. And we have an immediate option. Technically, we could play the Elder Dragon. Elder Dragon would let us kill one of these units, and then meant that we could run in these 2 units and kill an additional 2. However, there's not much else we could do beyond that. Sorry, I just realized I forgot to recycle one for this. The alternative is we could play Direwing, which would be 7, and we could run this in, and that's a 4, but 4, we kill 2 of those, and we would have enough runes to do nothing else. There isn't really much that we can unfortunately do on the Volibear's side of things. The best we can do is play the Elder Dragon and target the Xin Zhao, and then bring these 2 units over here and target the Spectral Matron and the Vi. But other than that, they still have 1 extra unit, which ended up being the difference maker. Now, let's say we instead did Kssden the Infernal and drew 2 cards. We can see here, Blazing Scorcher can come out accelerated, but we couldn't afford to do Blazing Scorcher and Kssden, because that would be 9, 14, so we could technically do it, but then we'd have to exhaust both of these, which means we're actually left with an additional just a 5 might that can't do anything, and we have no way of bringing this back and then moving it in. So unfortunately for the Volibear, this is game. There's nothing they can do in these circumstances, which is the power of this utility play you can get out of Darius. If we look at its next card, we can see there's a Seal of Unity, but this combination of when to use Baited Hook, we can see LeBlanc uses it highly effectively and consistently, while Darius is more just interested in setting up these combo plays with Legion and effective might utilization. And yes, we did see some interesting use of that might and the energy mismanagement in game 2 from my behalf, but it's really fascinating that an orange deck such as Volibear also made a really good showing. Now, if we quickly cleared that and we instead I draw a few more cards, the focus that this deck wants to make, wow, they are a bit deep. So the focus of this a deck such as this is that they want to utilize the Herald of Scales. They run 2 in this deck. They want to utilize Herald of Scales with the existence of the Gentle Gem Dragon, because if we clear the board and we would have, let's say, both Herald of Scales out and a second Gentle Gem Dragon out, when we were to play, let's say, Blazing Scorcher, Blazing Scorcher's value, or how much energy he costs, is 1. Because it's reduced by 2 for both of these. So he comes in and he costs 1 energy, but then because of both of these Gentle Gem Dragons, he actually brings back in, or readies, 4 runes, which means you have a net positive of 3 runes for playing this Blazing Scorcher. And yes, sure, if you it decide to accelerate him, he costs 2, but you're still getting a net positive of 2. And that accelerate cost is offset by the mighty, which means that you can play him, you can exhaust one for you recycle one for the accelerate, and then bring it back in, and then you ready them, and it means that it actually didn't cost you anything to accelerate him. And with that additional 2, well, you can bring in Direwing. Direwing only costs 3, but readies 4. So he's also a net positive. Where is he? Sorry, they're very small on my screen. So there we are. So yeah, that's actually, let's use him as an example anyway. Elder Dragon would cost now, instead of the 12, he is going to cost -4. He's going to cost 8, and he's going to bring in 4. Oh. Sorry, I just got rid of him. There we go. There's Direwing. So Direwing is going to cost 3, but he's going to bring in 4. So he's net positive 1, and he comes in ready, and he's a 7-way. So you can see, just with having these 4 cards in base, you somehow turn a very expensive deck into a net, like a energy positive deck, where on a single turn you can bring out your entire hand and then shove strength in order to then draw more cards, and then use Kadrigan the Infernal to draw more cards, and then you can use things such as Sabotage to ensure that the opponent doesn't have any cards in hand, Mobilize to ready more channel more exhausted runes, and Minotaur Reckoner to ensure that units can't move from base, locking your opponent into a position where they have to keep what they're doing. But unfortunately for in these circumstances, the Volibear really struggled against such an aggressive and utility-based deck, not utilitarian, utility-based deck. But also at the same time, the Darius really struggled when they didn't have the adaptability of the baited hook, and drew some really unfortunate cards in some ways. But I hope this has been really informative in teaching you more about some really interesting playstyles. We looked at a red that wasn't Aurora. We saw a revision of red that from our game 1 where we had Jinx. We saw it in a different playstyle this time. We got to see interesting interactions when it comes to death knells, chains, and we went over very briefly the whole readying of runes and once again revisiting gear versus units. But otherwise, I hope that this has been interesting, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.